I'm not ready, I'm not prepared. Oh shit, I'm really not prepared. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I don't know if I'm in the frame. Roll with it, just roll with it. If you're new here, my name is Marlow York and I'm a self-published author, and today I'm going to be filming my July 2019 monthly favorites / recap video, and it was another movie and show heavy month. But I'm not really mad. I would love to do more dedicated videos about like TV shows and movies that I like, but I don't know if people care about that kind of stuff, and I know it kind of goes against the whole booktube, authortube thing, but whatever. I've said before, I am a story lover, and movies, TV shows, and video games are all great ways to experience stories outside of books. So I'm just gonna get started and quit wasting time. I don't have a favorite book for this month because I'm still reading the current book that I started, I don't know, X amount of weeks ago. So I'm currently reading Fragments of Light, and I don't want to get too much into it because I'm not quite halfway there yet. It's a pretty big book, and it takes me a while to get through books because I can only read like in the evening for maybe half an hour or so, but I am enjoying it so far. And it is an indie published book, so out there to support my fellow indie authors. Alright, so the next category is TV shows. I did mention in the previous month's recap video that I watched The Umbrella Academy, but at that point I was only, I think, 6 episodes in, and there's only 1 season out so far and it's 10 episodes, but I did want to touch back on it because I didn't actually rate it because I hadn't finished it. So I'm not going to explain all about what it's about, the plot, the characters, whatever. But I have watched it the entire way through twice now, and I do want to say that I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I think it's definitely a unique show that's based on a comic book, and it has sort of unique powers and stuff going on. And I just like stories that have, you know, dysfunctional families that still love each other even though everyone doesn't necessarily get along. I did take away 1 star for a few reasons, and that's mostly because I was left with a lot of questions. And they are saying that there's going to be a season 2, which makes sense. And of course, like I said, it's a comic book, so the show doesn't cover as much time as the comic book has. So I'm sure that in the realm of Umbrella Academy, the questions have been answered, but by the end of season 1, I still had a lot of questions that I felt like could have been answered at that point. For instance, how does Pogo even exist? What happened to Ben? Kind of stuff like that, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the show. I can't even see my notes. Here's to being nearsighted. The next show that me and my husband watched this month was Vikings, and I believe there's 5 seasons out right now. I think it originally aired on the History Channel, but it is a fictional show, and I think season 5 is divided into like 2 parts or something, but anyway, the entire series is about Ragnar Lothbrok and how he was... They're not really sure if he existed or not. He's sort of like a legend, but they think that he really did exist, and it's about him going from being a lowly farmer to eventually being king. And as the show says, it does talk about Vikings and how they travel to other countries to pillage and take over land and stuff like that. And the later seasons follow his sons. He has 4 sons, 5 sons, I don't know. A lot of them die. There's a lot of people dying in the show. It is a pretty gritty, violent, and sometimes graphic show, but it's very entertaining if you're into Viking lore and legends and are just kind of interested in that stuff in general, and I am, because I did use Viking inspiration in some of the characters in Blood of Fire. So I gave it 4.5 stars. There are some episodes that are slower than others. You'll see some where there's a lot of like violence and action, like really intriguing stuff happening, and then there's some that are just really slow. And they also do this thing where they'll jump through time without really saying at all how much time has passed. You can only assume that it's been like weeks or months because of the changing seasons, but it'll show like stuff going on in England, and then it'll switch to, you know, suddenly it's winter in Kattegat, and then you're back to England and someone suddenly has a beard and you're like, wait, what time is it? What exactly is going on? So it's a little bit confusing in the sense of time passing, but I think that's my only real complaint about the overall show, regardless of, you know, the plot and stuff like that. Okay, the last show on my list is Peaky Blinders, and I'm actually going to read what it's about from Wikipedia. I have the computer up behind me because I just have a hard time explaining plots. So I'm just going to read what it says real fast. Peaky Blinders is a British crime drama television series primarily set in Birmingham, England. in the aftermath of World War I. This series follows the exploits of the Shelby crime family. So basically this show follows, like it said, the Shelby family, and the main protagonist is Thomas Shelby, who's sort of the leader of this family and also the gang, I guess. Peaky Blinders are a gang, so if you're into like gang warfare in like, what era was it? I'm not really good with dates. 1919? So yeah. So the early 1920s is when it takes place in the UK, primarily in England. And I guess the Shelby family did exist, but not necessarily these characters. And you're kind of seeing how Thomas Shelby and his family are trying to, well, they commit a lot of crimes in order to gain infamy and money and status, and it's not really like they're starting from rock bottom. The series opens with them already very well respected and feared and also pretty wealthy, I think. Mostly through gambling, horse racing, stuff like that. There's currently 4 seasons out, and I think the 5th season just aired on TV or something as of the time that I'm filming this. And of course, each season sort of has its own arc, but each season is only 6 episodes long, so they go through stuff so quickly that sometimes I think details get glossed over a lot. That's why I ended up giving this show 4 stars out of 5. As of right now, we're only in the 3rd season, I believe. But I like it. I like sort of crime shows that take place within an era that I can sort of understand, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, Vikings is like, not ancient times. I'm so bad at like time periods and making any historical sense whatsoever. But Vikings obviously takes place in a much earlier time period, if that makes sense, but the 1920s are sort of within my realm of understanding, as in things are, like, there are concepts that I can understand, so it's not completely foreign, even though I obviously wasn't alive in the 1920s. I also like stories that have morally ambiguous characters. So of course, like I said, the Peaky Blinders are a gang, and there's a lot of crime that goes on, and they do a lot of terrible things. Like, you could argue that they're really bad people, but they do things with morals. For instance, they're really big on family. The family dynamic is really important to them, even if they don't always get along, and it's definitely a dysfunctional family, but Thomas Shelby does a lot of things for his family, and they also do give back to their community. So it's not necessarily a case of just like taking from the rich and giving to the poor. They of course are greedy and they do things for their own gain and their own notoriety, but they do also do things for some good reasons. So there's definitely that gray area about who's the real villain here. You could argue that if this show was filmed from any other character's perspectives, that any of them could be the good guy and the bad guy. So it's not just like, we're 100% good and we can do no wrong, and they're obviously the villain here and the antagonist. It's sort of like, well, we all do really bad things, but some of us do them for okay reasons. It's just everyone's on the right and the wrong side of the law at all times. So it really just depends on who you want to side with, but of course in this case, because it's framed around the Shelby family, we're going to be on their side for the most part. And I think the one complaint that I do have, each season takes pretty big leaps in time. I think each season has been like 2 years after the previous season, and in some cases, there's some kind of important details that they just completely graze over. It's just like, this person died, and you're like, well, wait, that was kind of an important character. Was it a matter of the actor left the show and we just had to kill them off for convenience sake? Or is it like, we're just skipping over this information because it's more convenient and it's not that important, we just need to move things along? I really don't know. It almost feels to me like a time constraint thing. Like, there has to be a reason that there's only 6 episodes in every season, which is really small. Not that I know a whole lot about television filming, but just having watched umpteen shows, 6 seems very small. So they'll just sort of be like, 2 years later, so-and-so died, and they died of this illness or whatever, and that's just that. And you're like, okay, I would have liked to see that maybe, and seen the repercussions right afterwards and how we got from where we were 2 years ago to now, but I just find that I tend to just shrug and say, oh, okay, you know, at the beginning of each season. Now the next category is movies, and I have quite a few of them, so oh lordy, how quickly can I talk while still making sense. The first movie is Deliverance, And this is a classic sort of survival movie. I think a lot of people heard about the infamous squeal like a pig scene. And because of that, and just sort of making assumptions about the whole movie, about it being real like creepy and gross, I didn't want to watch it, but me and my husband just sort of agreed, like, we know this is probably going to be really creepy and cringy at times, but it's like a classic. It's a movie that has been around for so long and been talked about so much that we kind of have to. And I gave it 4 stars. I mean, it's definitely aged, and there's some aspects of it where I'm like, okay, I don't really know why that character did that, but you could chalk it up to they don't really know what they're doing. But basically it follows a group of guys who go on a rafting trip and everything just goes to hell, and then it becomes a story about survival and them just trying to get the hell out of the woods and get back to civilization while they're being hunted by hillbillies. But it was good. All things considered, I enjoyed it, but yeah, it was definitely some questionable moments. Let's see, the next movie we watched was Deadwood the movie. So Deadwood was a TV show, which I highly recommend, but I didn't watch the show recently, so I'm not going to comment too much on that. The show is great, and it basically shows the founding of Deadwood, South Dakota. Some of the characters that appear with it are like actual Western legends, Western heroes, like people who actually existed, and I think there's some that are fictionalized as well. I feel like it ended because of like a writer's strike or something, but it ended very abruptly, and like fans have wanted a movie or a reprisal for years, and they finally did it in 2019. I'm gonna look up, let's see, it says, as the residents of Deadwood gathered to commemorate Dakota's? Oh, it was probably like only one Dakota at the time. I don't know. As the residents of Deadwood gathered to commemorate Dakota's statehood in 1889, saloon owner Al Swearingen clashes with Sheriff Seth Bullock, which is kind of the basis of the show in a way, but so the movie picks up, I guess, a while after the show ended. I don't really remember exactly how much time is supposed to pass within the story itself, but there's some stuff going on, and you know, someone gets killed, and then they have to solve the murder and try and get that person arrested. And I liked it a lot because it was very, I guess, nostalgic for me. A lot of the original cast and characters came back, so you're just kind of like, hey, they're back. Oh, it's you. Holy crap, you look old. But as far as like the storyline went, once again, it was similar to the way that the TV show would play out, but the ending kind of left me wanting. And that's why I gave it 4 stars if I didn't mention that before. I may have given it less if I hadn't really liked the show beforehand, because it did sort of leave off on, well, is this guy who killed so-and-so going to see justice, or is that it? Is he going to just like talk his way out of it because he's a rich guy or whatever, without getting too much into spoilers? But I liked it. I would definitely recommend watching the show and then watching the movie if you so choose, if you like westerns and stuff like that. We have quite a few more movies. This whole video should just be like the month of movie reviews. The next movie we watched was The Sixth Sense. So yeah, this is basically a story about a little boy who sees dead people. It's an M. Night Shyamalan film, and of course there's an M. Night Shyamalan twist ending, but this movie is so old that the ending was spoiled for me years ago on like I Love the 70s or I Love the 80s. Or when did it come out? Probably the 90s actually. 1999. So yeah. So the twist ending was spoiled on, I believe, Scrubs? I just knew, or maybe it was I Love the 90s or something like that. But so I went into this movie already knowing the twist, and it's definitely the kind of movie that you have to watch at least twice, I think, because you're watching it through the first time thinking that something is the... Can I just spoil it? Can I? It's been years. It's, what, been 20 years since this movie came out? You watch it thinking that someone is alive the entire time, turns out that they're dead, and then you have to, like, rethink about everything that you watched them do, and you're like, oh, that makes sense why so-and-so didn't talk to them, and this and that. And then if you watch it again, knowing that, the movie definitely has, like, a different feeling after you know what the twist is. So it was kind of difficult for me to watch the movie all the way through because I already knew how it ended. So it ruined the ending, but I looked at it from a different perspective. But yeah, it's basically a story about a kid who sees ghosts and who tries to figure that out, and also a guy who tries to help him. Let's just leave it at that. I give it 4 stars. despite the fact that it was not watched the proper way. The next movie, yeah, I told you there's a lot of freaking movies. Are you ready? The next movie we watched was Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I gave this movie 4.5 stars. I've seen this movie at least like 3 times, and I still love it. I think it's very imaginative and unique. I love the fact that it combines comic book and anime stuff with live action. So it's like seeing a live action movie, but if anime and comic book stuff were in real life. So basically, this movie is about Michael Cera playing Michael Cera. No, I shouldn't pick on him. That's not fair. He falls in love with this mysterious girl, and in order to date her, he has to battle her 7 evil exes. And it's just funny. It's funny, it's unique, it's fun to watch, and yeah, I really like it, and I've watched it several times and enjoyed it each and every time. The next movie I watched was Batman Begins. I'll just say it right now, I gave it 3 stars because meh. Like, I don't care about the Batman franchise really, and this movie was sort of just like, like I didn't care that much. And I think the point of this movie is to sort of explain why Batman became Batman. He went from being, fuck's his name, Bruce Wayne Net Worth. Did people look that up for real? It shows how Bruce Wayne turned into Batman and the things leading up to it, but I feel like there were some things, like the whole learning to become a ninja and stuff like that, that wasn't in the comics. I have no way of knowing because I've never read it. I don't know that much about the Batman lore, saga, whatever. And there were just some parts of it where I was like, really? Like, this doesn't make much sense. And I also ended up falling asleep, like, during the climax, the big fight scene at the end or whatever. So yeah, I just didn't really care that much about it. The last movie on the list is actually a series of movies that is also a TV show. And that is Mystery Science Theater 3000. So there's different reiterations of Mystery Science Theater, and I started watching it in college, and it was like different movies, a different host or whatever, and my friends introduced me to it, and I thought it was super funny. So this is like a newer version of it. Basically what it is these comedians, and some of them are robots, it's set in space, whatever. That's not the part that you really watch it for, to be honest. So what they do is they watch really bad movies, like movies that are horrible, not like Twilight where some people are like, oh my god, Twilight, and then everyone else just wants to shit on it. It's just like, no, these movies are just bad. Like, no one could possibly enjoy them because they're just poorly written, bad CG effects, not even CG, but just bad effects, just bad, and they make fun of them. And so you're watching the terrible movie as they're watching it, and their commentary is what makes it funny. So you're just sitting there kind of watching the absurdity of the movie and making fun of it yourself in your head, and their commentary just makes it so much funnier. And they do have some little, like, in-between scenes where, you know, the robots and the humans are, like, doing little, I don't know, skits or something, but I don't give a fuck about that, honestly. I never found that part that entertaining. I'm just there for the funny commentary on horrible movies. So I give it 4.5 stars because you also have to watch the horrible movie, and some of them are just, they're just bad. Like, it's kind of like, I hope the commentary on this one is good because the movie itself is just awful. Restarted the camera. So the last item on my monthly favorites / recap video is the miscellaneous category, and that is FlexiSpot sit-stand desks. So FlexiSpot is one of many companies that makes standing desks, or sit-stand desks, convertible desk, whatever you want to call them. A desk that you can sit at and then tweak in some way, and then you're standing. You know what I mean. It makes sense. So I first started using a standing desk when I went into the office for the company that I work for currently. Sitting all day is fucking awful. People like to say that sitting is the new smoking, it's just terrible for you and it feels bad, and I'm the kind of person that hates sitting too long anyway. I'm just like gesturing like crazy because I've been sitting all day working prior to filming this video. The first type of desk that I used was actually, I think it's called like a converter or something, but basically what it was a platform that was big enough that I could put my 2 monitors on, and my monitors are very big. I have 2 monitors that are like 2 feet wide each, and they both fit on this, as well as the keyboard, and the platform itself adjusted to go up and down. So it wasn't like a full desk. It was just a platform that sat on top of a desk, and you put your monitors and your keyboard and whatever else on top of it. And I loved that. What I have now if I want to risk showing you the monstrosity that is my workspace right now, is a full desk. Fuck it, I'll just show you. So this is what my current setup looks like. I'm sorry it's so dark, can't really do much about it, but this is a full-size desk. It is quite large. This mechanism right here is a crank that is what makes it go up and down. So FlexiSpot, not sponsored, gotta throw that out there. They're not sponsoring this video, they didn't send me anything, I just bought this of my own accord because I really wanted it. They make a few different models. Like I said, they make the platform kind of desk, they have manual desk, which is what this one is because it has the hand crank that you have to physically crank yourself to make it go up and down. And then they have electric ones where you press a button and it goes up and down on its own. And they have like accessories and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. I really like standing desks in general. I think if you're the kind of person who works in an office, if you're a writer, if you're a creator, if you're whatever person that has to sit down, but your job could also allow you to stand and work, you should do it. And you should go back and forth between sitting and standing throughout the day because it's just better than sitting on your ass all day. You can look into why you should do that, the health benefits of standing desks, bad things about sitting all day on your own, but generally speaking, this is a good way to combat sitting all day. Like I said, I think I actually prefer the platform model better because it was way easier to assemble, for one thing. This desk took, I kid you not, probably like 3.5 hours for me to put together by myself. It's very large, which I like because now I have more room to do stuff, to work, I guess. But I don't like that because I prefer compact things, personally. It's also incredibly heavy. And most of the weight is in the legs, which you couldn't really see because they're black and the lighting in here is a crapshoot, but they are extremely heavy in themselves, and the tabletop is pretty heavy by itself. It came in 3 different boxes. I think the desk itself had to be in 2 boxes, and then the keyboard came in a separate box because that was something I had to purchase separately. It didn't come with a keyboard tray, but it did take a really long time to put together, and it wasn't exactly easy. The instructions were okay, but there was a lot of drilling and I had to like draw on the underside of the table to figure out where stuff was supposed to go, and it was just a huge pain in the ass. Once I got it put together and finally put it here, I know there's a previous video I filmed where it was in the background and I was like, hey, ignore that, it will move over here. It was kind of difficult to get moved, but now that it's here, I do like it. And I prefer having the manual desk as opposed to the electric ones they have because I could have this anywhere. It doesn't require being plugged in. It will always be able to go up and down even if the power goes out, which does happen here sometimes because apparently in the summer in Utah it never rains, but when it does, it's always a thunderstorm. So I've had the power go out quite a few times while I've been working, and it really sucked for the power to go out while this thing is down and I want it up, or if it's up and I want it back down. So manual was just the right thing for me to choose. I recommend this model. I would recommend it, and the company in general. When it comes to companies that make standing desks, this company, FlexiSpot, was actually up there quite a bit, and a lot of their desks were less expensive than other companies that were considered good. This desk, I believe, cost more than I'd like to admit. It was definitely in the hundreds. I can't remember if it was like 300 or 500 or something like that, but it was up there. If I look into it, then I'll tell you in like the captions, which I love to use so much, and when I can't remember any words off the top of my head. The platform converters were definitely less expensive, so if I had to choose again, I think I would have just gone with a converter platform. However, I would have had to have bought a new desk anyway because the desk that I was using had like a small workspace and then like a platform up here, and so like the converter would not have fit on the little room that I had. Whatever, I did what I could, and I like this desk well enough. I'm not looking forward to having to move it someday if I have to, so I do regret that it's so freaking heavy, but all things considered, I do like it, and I recommend the company because they have different types of desks that you can pick and choose what works best for you, and I would recommend standing desks in general. Alright, so I guess that's all I have for you guys today. I know it was a lot of movies and TV shows, but I like them a lot, and I don't have a ton of time to read, even though I'm like a bookish person. I don't read books that quickly nowadays, so I really like talking about movies and TV shows and other things. If I had more miscellaneous stuff to talk about, I would have done that as well, but I didn't. So I won't. I don't know where I was going with that. Alright, so I'm just going to end this here. If you have watched or read or experienced any of the things on this list, please comment below and let me know what you thought about them. If you'd like to keep up with me on my writing endeavors, I will leave all my social media links below in the description. If you'd like to check out my debut self-published novel, Blood of Fire, I'll also link that below in the description. So until next time, see ya!